Welcome back to Girlfriends of a Certain Age. I'm your girlfriend, Fleshay.
I'm your other girlfriend, Jessica.
And today we are going to do a deep dive on reliving America's Next Top Model and all the excitement now from the new documentary on Netflix talking about America's Next Top Model. Where are they now? What was the show? How did it age? All the good things. And we are bringing our Gen X perspective to this conversation. We're just going to put that out there. We're a couple of ladies in our 50s, and this is our hot take on America's Next Top Model. So, Jessica, what are your initial hot takes after watching the Netflix documentary?
Woo, girl. What a shit show, right? I mean,
Oh,
it went from America's Top Model to America's Not. I mean, it was just a rough ride to watch it. I think it was an important reality documentary to look at. And I think, honestly, of all these reality shows, there could be a documentary for each one. But I'm so excited to jump into it with you and talk about, just what it was like back then. I really, truly think it was the Wild West. And I think there were just no guardrails in place for these contestants. And Tyra, at the end of the day, is not looking so hot. So that is my initial hot take, but I really can't wait to dive into the many ways that this was a really strange rewatch. How about you? What's your hot take?
I gotta say, when I saw in Netflix the show was coming, I instantly saved it to my library because I loved America's Next Top Model when it was on live. A little bit about me. Back in the day, I did a few modeling gigs when I was in elementary school at a department store, and I loved it. I was hooked. I was like, I'm going to be a model when I grow up. My parents said, no, you can't do it till you're 18. So I think I had this built up in my mind, that modeling was this really glamorous, amazing business. And then I did a hair show when I was 16, and I saw some real ugliness, like creeps trying to watch us change in the back. And it was just so gross. And my parents, I think, were actually a little bit happy of yeah, see, it's not that great. But when that show came on, it brought something to life that did make it glamorous. And I could tell that it was pretty manufactured, that those girls were really being stressed out on purpose. So I wasn't so shocked to hear that, 20 some odd years later, they were kind of grossed out about their time and participation on the show.
Yeah.
And
Oh, real
honestly,
quickly, Elizabeth
yeah.
Van Alstine is saying, me too, proud to be 74 years young. Yes, Elizabeth,
Yeah.
feeling it, right?
Yeah. We bring such a perspective to this conversation, right? And as we know better, we think things look different to us too from the past.
Yeah.
So I think that's definitely part of it. Jessica, can you still hear me?
I can. There is a little warning sign saying that you're not coming through, but we're just going to talk until,
Okay.
something else goes. Okay, now you're back. I hear you and see you great. You look gorgeous.
Okay. Yay.
Well,
Yes to you.
yeah, right. Thank you. Well, speaking
Yeah.
of the wanting to be a model thing, of our generation, that was a big deal, right? I'm sure other Gen Xers and probably women who are older than us can relate. There was that was the pinnacle of celebrity. I mean, I can to this day think about the names like Naomi Campbell and Cindy Crawford and Christy Brinkley. These were like girl idols that we looked up to. And even though America's Next Top Model was, I think, early aughts, it still had that allure of what it was like, right? When you were basically growing up on magazines. I mean, that was it. I remember some girls in my middle school were doing Barbizon, if you remember that modeling school. And
I wanted it so
you
bad.
wanted it so bad. I'll never forget that one of my friends was doing a little bit of it, and she gave us this tip that I'll just regret forever, which was when you're taking a photo, if you want to make your lips look bigger, blow out as they're taking the photo. So you see photos of me at this age going,
Doing horse lips. I know it seems so glamorous. And I feel like the messaging too was that's the best way for a young woman to make a lot of money. You use your body, you use your looks, you use it, and it's all going to go downhill real quick.
yes.
So use it while you got it. I do think I really bought into that. And it actually makes me really sad to think about that. And my poor parents were like, I think they could see that and that it was going to be a nightmare if I got involved in that world. And so I'm so glad I came out of it. And then watching America's Next Top Model take on, I think there was something too for me personally that Tyra looks a little bit like me. I saw finally a supermodel who looked more like me, skin tone and interesting eyes. And I was just like, oh, so maybe I am pretty. Maybe I am
Mm,
prettier than I actually feel.
mm.
And so it was actually very important for me to see a Tyra out in the world doing big things and then starting this show. I was actually really excited. Um, and then
Yeah,
the show obviously was all gimmicky and then to find out later that there was a stigma for these women. Oh, you were on America's Next Top Model? Well, that's fun and all. You were on a reality show. That doesn't make you a real model. And so few of these women actually got to work in the modeling industry. That breaks my heart. It feels
yeah,
like they were just used.
yeah.
And I don't even know if they get royalties. I hope they're still making money off that show.
I doubt it. I'm sure
I
you
doubt it
sign
too.
sure you sign something and you sign most of your rights away. I doubt you get a lot of anything from that show. And that's really important that you bring that up, Lachey. Yeah, it was still really predominantly white and blonde and stick thin, and Tyra Banks coming in and representing, and also her initial goal of the show was really a beautiful one when you're watching the documentary Reality Check, and she's talking about wanting to bring in different body types, different skin tones, people from different backgrounds. I thought that was such a beautiful goal. And then you could see that immediately she was getting pushback from the producers and the people running the show. There was in season one contestant that they wanted to bring in, and they pushed back on it. And the Jays talked to this in the documentary that back then having one person of color was considered having a diverse show. So it was, in a funny way, ahead of its time, for its time, as far as diversity and representation. But then what you see that happened with that was that it got so misguided. I mean, can we talk about the weird stuff that was going on during that show, especially the attention that was paid to the women of color, especially the way Tyra Banks was sort of trying to play this big sister role, but I felt like it got really twisted. Some of the ideas that they were bringing up on this show around like race swapping, it was so terribly misguided, and you're just thinking all of these people along the way were signing off on this. So I know we made Tyra Banks kind of like the main villain, and I think she is very accountable, but I think there were a lot of other people that were letting a lot of really horrible, frankly damaging stuff go and fly and air on TV. So, what do you think of that vilifying of Tyra?
Yeah, I mean, it's not surprising. As a woman of color myself, I know that we are often really easily made into punching bags, right? And when one starts to make it, it's like, well, don't get too big for your britches. So while I think this show was clearly her brainchild, this was her baby, we
Mhm.
also know that once you get involved in these larger corporations, another creature takes over and it's not good. And we're seeing a lot of that ugliness now, right? And we're seeing a lot of connections across industry or these like Hollywood industries. So I think that she probably got, in bed with the devil.
Yes,
And of course, they were more than happy to let her take the fall as well as the glory, right? And it's complicated.
yes.
But Girlfriend did not show up well to that documentary series. I mean,
Wow.
I'm a therapist, but I'm no body language expert. But her body language was screaming discomfort. I don't want to answer these questions. I'm not even sure how much I want to be here. I
Or like
felt like,
protective code?
no, what was going on? What look she was going for? But she came off as being she didn't come off well. She came off as being a little off balance. She came off a little unprepared. Um, and it seemed like she also was teasing a comeback. So I wasn't sure what was going on, but I felt like she was like invited quickly to that and just showed up like, okay, let's answer a few questions.
Yeah,
And I don't feel like any of the questions to her were gotcha questions. They were all things that she should have been able to come up and speak
yeah,
well to, especially Shandi, the sexual assault, when she was kind of playing dumb. Oh, I don't know. I'm not sure. Remember that.
yeah.
That was
Oh,
so unbelievable
oh
and
my
and uh,
god.
and
That was
unbelievable a thing to have happened, but
yeah,
then to have her play dumb like she had never heard of it before or vaguely
yeah.
remembered.
Yeah, that was ridiculous. Come on, come on. You're a better actor than that. That was really poorly done. Yeah, and let's talk about Shondi's storyline for a moment. It's really a painful one, but the fact that she was in Italy on a shoot and they brought in some of the male models for a night of drinking and hot tubs, which, by the way, these reality shows, will do this. Like, let's create some drama, mix young people and alcohol and a little possible sex, and woohoo, it's, free entertainment. And so poor Shondi winds up, uh, hooking up essentially with somebody. But as she's interviewed in the documentary, she's telling us that she was blackout drunk, that she was absolutely not aware of what was happening. And that's really, really dangerous, right? When there's like no consent going on. And this camera crew filmed the entire thing in the shower, in the bed, even afterwards when she has to call her boyfriend and explain it to her. It was just so awful. And then when Tyra Banks shows up, like I want to say it was a couple days later, and she framed it as cheating and how, oh boy, there sure are a lot of tempting things out there, but we shouldn't cheat, when it was so much more complicated and so much more nuanced than that. And poor Shondi, like, she talked about it in the documentary. You can just feel the weight of that, the slut shaming, the way that like the public would just like call her out when they saw her. And I don't think her relationship did not survive that. It was really, it was so anti-woman. It was so anti-feminist in a show that was supposed to be all about propping up sisterhood. That was really a painful part of the documentary to watch.
Well, and then Tyra did it again on her talk show. And
Oh,
Shondi had never watched the footage. It was just too much for her to watch her own assault being used as
yes.
entertainment. And then Tyra, knowing that, this is according to Shondi, that Shondi had never watched the footage, Tyra then plays it in front of Shondi on her talk show. And then I feel like reassaults her again and still plays dumb.
Yes.
Let's talk about it more. Let's tuck into this. I thought that was just so terrible, and obviously all for ratings, and just so not about the sisterhood, and not what Tyra said she wanted the show originally to be about. Either of her shows, her talk show or her America's Next Top Model show, which is really about bringing women up and bringing in more diverse voices. That really broke my heart to see what this had become. And
Yes.
what Tyra then had to do to get more eyeballs and get more clicks and get more viewers. And to me, that's where everything was just like, okay, we're done. This is not healthy and good
No.
anymore. And there were just so many storylines like that on America's Next Top Model,
Let's
including
talk
Danny, who
Danny. Yeah.
was actually very successful, the one who had the gap in her teeth and who didn't
Yes.
want to take it away.
No.
She ended up being one of the very few big successes after being on the show. She's worked for these last 2 decades as a model.
Wow. Wow. And power to her for actually really standing up for herself and refusing to not have her body changed. I mean, she was under so much pressure to do it. She was with another girl who they were literally yanking teeth out. I mean, it was just so intense. And I just felt like she held her ground. And then in a later episode, there was a white woman who they said they wanted to actually increase her gap to emulate an older supermodel. I just the double standard there like was so horrible, and for this to just happen to her. So I loved Danny in this documentary. I loved how she was talking. She was like a arrow. She would just talk straight about her experience of what was happening, and that she really had a stigma after that show when she went out. She wasn't getting work because of the stigma of being on the show. So the sad truth that these girls were sort of sold this like storyline of like, this will make you, and granted there was some money that you got, but that it really wound up like harming so many of them so much more, right? Of all the years of this, she's like one of the success stories. And then I think there's a lot of people who just like carry some trauma to this day. Let's talk about the Jays and the relationship between the Jays. We saw how Tyra Banks, didn't even visit Miss J when they had a stroke, a really, really intense one. There was just this kind of breakdown of a relationship there. And I mean, I do hold them accountable. They were there long enough. They were in the mud doing a lot of stuff with her, and I did feel a little bit like in the documentary there was a little bit of this like, we're powerless, we were just there. I'm like, yeah, were you really? They're right, right. At one point, this Jay was wearing a shirt that said like "starve the models" or something, and it was sort of a joke, but is that really a funny shirt, right? And
Right.
that Jay Manuel, was on these photo shoots. There was that other woman who was getting like groped by a model on a photo shoot, and he was like basically saying, "We're all here, we're all here. Nothing bad is happening to you." I mean, he was, gaslighting her about what she was actually experiencing. So I do hold them accountable. I feel like there was maybe a little way that they went on this show more prepared than Tyra, right? But what do you think about this, like this relationship that they had that just like fell apart?
Yeah, I mean, it seems like people who, and something you and I can relate to. You and I wear many hats together, and we work really hard on our relationship in these different roles that you and I sit in together with each other.
Yeah.
And I think that that is what was happening with them, right? Miss J taught Tyra how to walk when she was 16, right? And so they have this old, different kind of relationship. And then Jay Manuel knew her also from the industry in a certain kind of way. And then Nigel is just brought in because he's hella hot and sexy. And they
Gorgeous.
wanted like a white passing guy to be on the show. Um, so I think that they all had a lot of complicated and messy relationships with each other, is my sense, and that they weren't really taking care of them, right? They were just showing up for work and bearing a lot of resentments and complaints and judgments against each other. And then when it all fell apart, it all fell apart. I
Yeah.
mean, that's how I see it. That's what it reminds me of.
Yeah.
And also reminds me to like make sure that I'm taking all care of all my relationships, because life is moving fast and there are a lot of responsibilities. And I think it's a good reminder for everybody that we need to say the hard things in our relationships. So that's the sense that I get. And so but then now they're all going on talk shows and throwing Tyra under the bus. And
Yeah.
granted, she girlfriend did not show up well
Right.
in her interview on the docuseries. So, they're having their next time in the sun, right?
That's right.
Riding the waves of this little unicorn pooping a rainbow moment, talking about America's Next Top Model.
Yes, absolutely. And they have some valid points, but there is a teaming up against her, which is kind of ironic in a way that, her fall from grace. Now they're, kind of on their own team, but there's a dynamic there that also feels a little manufactured, kind of like, oh, we were all victims of Tyra. It's like, come on, no, you weren't. You guys were part of this show just as much as she was. So they need to hold some more accountability, I think. I did, though,
So,
feel like they were coming across in a more sincere way. You're right that Tyra was by far the most offensive. I mean, yeah, body language experts would totally like analyze what she was doing, but just the way she was talking, the way she was telling us, well, that was 20 years ago. It was like very dismissive. And at one point, that comment about this is what you all wanted, that was such
mm,
a weird thing. And I've seen women push back who are younger than us of like, I was 12 when I was watching this show. Why would I want that? Really, really weird photo shoots with like unhoused people, violence. I mean, it was just getting so over the top with what they were doing. Can we talk about Tyra's idea of unity by race swapping? What in what universe does that make sense?
I know. Not only did that not age well, that even at the time it didn't feel right to me, and I didn't have all the words for it. But I remember watching that episode live,
Yeah.
And even then I was just like, this doesn't seem right. And what are we doing? And what is the purpose of this? And of course it was all about pushing the envelope and for ratings. And it did kind of wake everybody up of like, yeah, what are we doing? Is this cool? Is this okay?
Yeah.
And to see it now and look back on it, and that it wasn't just once, it was multiple times that they
Mhm.
did this sort of race bending
Yeah.
situation. Yeah, I thought it was really gross, and super inappropriate. And um, obviously people have been doing this for a long, long time. And I
Yeah.
think that just now a collective consciousness and awareness of we don't do that. Let's not pretend to be other ethnicities and other races, because it really is like making fun of people and
Yeah.
turning them into a joke in some ways. And I think it's something that everyone sort of trauma bonded over. I think that's part of why America's Next Top Model is such a hot thing to talk about now. We're all trauma bonded in a weird, sick way over some of these weird and creepy and then some fun and glamorous things. Like, it was sort of everything.
Sure.
And to me, like, that's the takeaway. Like, I feel like
Mm.
we all, those of us who watched it, enjoyed parts of it, loved to hate it, whatever it was that had us keep coming back and watching. Uh, but I think at the end of the day, it's like a trauma bond.
Yeah, and that is a really good point. I
Yeah,
think too, I think it makes me step back and just look at reality shows, and I think we're all doing that more now and just going, "Wow, this whole system pulls us in." And at some level, I feel a little accountable watching some of these, knowing
exactly.
very well that, they're putting these young people together. As reality shows continued, you could tell that sometimes they would try to pick like the more like extreme personality archetypes to put on the show. So there was so much manipulation, and us, the viewers, were kind of, buying into it and playing our part in it. So I do hold myself just a little bit accountable in that we were giving them some ratings. We were coming back for more, and it makes me kind of think about like people watching, gladiator fights. Like there's just a funny part of human nature that we like to watch the extremes, right? We like to watch the drama. There's something really fun about it. But the fine line about quote reality TV is that these are not actors, right? These are not trained professionals who can like walk away at the end of the day knowing I've been filmed, I signed up for this, I have a whole team backing me up. These are real people who are showing up on these sets, just being like pushed around without any kind of sense of like autonomy. And I think that is something that we're learning was like deeply, deeply disturbing about all of this. And I know people say, well, they signed themselves up, but they were like so young. And I think that's a reason why we see so many of these reality shows attract really young people,
Yeah,
because you can manipulate them more.
exactly. Exactly. Well, girl,
Yeah.
I feel like I can leave it there.
Yes.
America's Next Top Model. If you haven't watched it, I do think it's worth a watch. The docuseries on Netflix.
Yes.
The old shows, I wouldn't, not so much. I think you can get the highlights from just watching the docuseries. But thank you so much, to everyone who joined us. It's super fun to be on our live show today and have so many hearts and minds with us. So thank you so much. Subscribe if you want more Gen X perspective on living well in midlife. And till next time, girlfriends. See you soon. Bye.
Bye.